Hey everyone, it's Dora from flippinghousesanpancakes.com, and I thought today I would come outside. It's a beautiful day, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about all the different things that I ended up learning while I was writing my cookbook. Hopefully there won't be too much interruption with all the cars going by. There is a road nearby and there's a lot of traffic. There are also some cars that kind of slow down and watch me talk to my camera. So we'll try to ignore that. I learned a lot writing this cookbook. I learned all kinds of things that I never expected to learn. In the actual writing process, I learned about writing a book. I've never attempted anything longer than an essay in school. It was a big difference, like a big deal to keep writing. And I guess I just did a little bit every day and I didn't realize how much I wrote. And even now today, like when I go back and I look through it and I go, I can't believe I wrote that much. Like that was amazing. I learned how hard it is to index. Props to anybody who actually does that for a living, because it felt just like torture. It was like torture. And not only that, but I ended up, due to page constraints and pricing constraints, I ended up taking some pages out of my cookbook and had to re-index. Oh my gosh. Torture. Pure torture. You should have seen my kids. Like, they would come in and like, can I get you something, mommy? Because they could tell how tortured I was in this whole process. Anyhow, so I learned about indexing. Horrible. I learned about editing. Have you ever like read a book and you're like, wow, how did they miss that one? Well, there's a typo. How'd they miss that? So easily, it turns out. My friend edited my book. I re-edited it multiple times. We actually had like an editing party where we passed around the sections to a whole bunch of people around a table, and everybody proofread the book again. And I think my book was edited, I don't even know how many times. 15 times. I don't know how many times. Huge amount of times. And I still find typos in there. And I'm like, wow, that's how they missed it. It's like your eyes just like, you know what it says, and you just like skip right over the extra word or that missed letter, and somehow you don't notice it. So I learned how hard editing is. That's a big thing. Editing is really hard. And I learned how easy it is to miss something when you're editing a book. That was, yikes. I always thought I'd have like a professional editor, but this whole book was pretty much an amateur professional book. I was an amateur professional in the whole process. My friend Rachel, who did the photography for food, she is technically an amateur professional. She takes photography. She's done some classes, but she hasn't really built up a giant food photography business or anything like that. So she was helping me out with that. Israel Orange does take house photography, does do house photography for a living. He also does wedding photography and portraits and things like that. So he was one of the main professionals who worked on my book. And the guy Paul Crawford, who did the cover design for me, he is a professional. He doesn't do book covers. He usually does magazine covers and magazine layouts and things like that. So I don't know if I was his first book or not, but so he was a professional, not an amateur, just a professional. My editor was my friend. She was an amateur professional. She was just an amateur, maybe. I don't know. She did a really good job. She worked really hard, and she volunteered for it, which was amazing. Amazing. And like the whole experience was just, we pulled together an amazing book, I think, and I love it, and I hope you guys love it if you have a copy of it. But the whole thing was a total learning process. So in the creating of the book, that was something really that I learned a lot in that process. In printing the book, I learned a lot too. I learned everything there was to know about printing a book that I never knew. I didn't know about the thickness of the cardboard that you need on the outside of your cookbook. I didn't know about the paperweight you need and the color bleed and so many details that I really never wanted to know, and now I do. So I learned tons in terms of printing a book, especially printing a full color 351 page book. I learned a lot about that. I learned a lot about like the on-demand printing business versus traditional printing, and we ended up going traditional printing for my cookbook because I could get the best photos. The best quality book I could get was using a traditional printer. I used an amazing company here in Maryland, Signature Book Printing, and they were super helpful. And I learned about all the different options of sending overseas versus doing here. I learned all kinds of things about different styles of publishing. I didn't know that there were I knew there were self-publishers and traditional publishers. I didn't know about hybrid publishers. I learned all kinds of stuff about the whole publishing industry, how difficult it is and what you need to submit to a company, to a publisher to see if they'll print your book. I learned how often publishers won't even email you back sometimes, or they'll just send you a letter like, well, didn't like it, or, well, that's not really for us right now. And you're like, tell me what is the issue. I learned how sometimes publishers will love your book if you just change one big thing that you really don't want to change, which is really one of the main reasons why I ended up printing my book myself. I wanted it the way I wanted it, and I had the most control over the final outcome by doing it myself. I learned all about social media doing this cookbook. I was given some advice at the very beginning that I really needed social media in order to get my book published, or in this case I self-published. Then I needed to be able to promote, so I needed social media, and I was not on any social media 3 years ago. Nothing. I was on Facebook. I had a Facebook account that I used once to get a coupon, I think, and never posted anything, never did anything, had no friends on Facebook, like really was not on any social media. I started an Instagram page. I learned all about how that works. I actually learned to do food photography for the Instagram page and ended up actually using some of my food photos in my cookbook. I learned all kinds of things, how to make reels, how to do posts, the whole thing with Instagram, and how to start networking like that. Then I added a Facebook page, so I got to learn Facebook a little better. I added that social media. I started a blog. I've never expected that I would be a blogger, but I am a blogger. I started a website and a blog. Never expected to learn how to do that, but every week I post a blog, or most every week I post on my blog all different types of stuff, which I didn't expect to learn how to blog. I started a Pinterest account and learned how to do that. And then I started a YouTube channel, which I really didn't expect to do. And here I am sitting filming a YouTube video. So I clearly learned how to do that. And the whole thing has been quite a process. And I learned a ton. Really, really learned a ton. I learned a lot about formatting in terms of like the writing of the book. I learned about the software that you use and the software that you don't use. And so if I ever were to write another book, I would not write it in Canva, which is how I actually wrote my cookbook. It was done entirely in Canva. And Canva is meant for smaller pamphlets, booklets, maybe even a small book, but it's not meant for anything over 100 pages. I had to have it in sections, and when I edit, I had to move everything manually. It's amazing for flyers. I've used it for flyers. I've used it for Instagram posts. I've used it for YouTube thumbnails, but it really is not the best thing to use for a long book. It's very easy to use, but it's just not meant for that. So I would recommend against that. I would use a different software if I was going to write another book. But that means that I learned how to make flyers, and I learned how to make Instagram posts, and I learned how to make, I I learned how to make YouTube thumbnails. And those are all things that I didn't know before and learned. So that was another thing. It has been like a 3-year learning process. I have been learning continuously, which I think is really good. I know how to do a lot of things that I didn't know how to do before. I know a lot about all kinds of subjects that I never expected to learn. I learned how difficult and complicated distribution of a book is. I learned about how challenging it is to walk up to somebody and say, "This is my book, would you consider putting it in your store?" That's difficult in multiple ways. It's difficult because you have to actually go there and do that. It's also difficult because what if they say no? That's hard. And I learned how hard promotion is, constantly promoting. You have to constantly promote your book. You have to constantly promote your YouTube channel and my website and my book. And just, it's like a whole network of things I have to constantly promote. And I learned how challenging that is when I'm doing other things. This is not my main thing that I do. I homeschool my kids. We have a business. For example, I was there this morning doing training on QuickBooks software. I wasn't training. I was the one doing the training. I was teaching somebody how to use QuickBooks for our rental business. I was arranging things with workers that were coming and going. So we have other businesses, like other work that happens. And all of this is kind of a side thing, I guess you could say. I learned how much effort it takes to do an event. Like when somebody says, "Oh, let's do like a cooking event." It's so much work. I learned that. It can be really fun. It's really fun meeting new people and showing them some of the stuff that I know how to do and teaching them things. But it's also a lot of work, and I learned how much work that is. Mostly I learned that I enjoyed learning. I enjoyed this whole learning process. I enjoyed getting to experiment with all of these different things, social media and writing, and I really enjoyed having my kids there with me while I did it. Like a lot of people say, well, shouldn't you wait until your kids grow up and then you do it? But I've actually really enjoyed, like I walked in one day and I had been filming something. I had filmed a cooking video for YouTube and I had left my camera up. And when I walked back in, my 2 younger kids were filming their own cooking video where they were making a smoothie with my camera. Like they turned on my camera and they made their own YouTube cooking video. And I enjoyed seeing how much they've learned from the whole process. It's been really entertaining. So I learned that, you know what? You can learn something new and it's really great. Why not? Go learn how to write a book. Go learn how to print a book. Go learn how to do a YouTube channel. I think that's what I learned the most, is that if I really want to try it, if I really want to learn it, I can sit down, and there are so many resources now that I could really actually learn it. And you can watch YouTube videos and read other people's blogs and find out the best ways to improve your food photos. And talk with people about different things they'd like to have in a book. Just like the whole process was essentially learning how much I enjoyed learning how to do all of those new things. So that's what I learned when I was writing this cookbook. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you comment down below and let me know which thing you enjoy learning or which thing you hope to learn. And if you did enjoy that video, please like it. Please subscribe to my channel. Hit the bell for notifications so you find out every time I upload a new video. See, I learned how to do that. And check out my blog on my website, flippinghouseandpancakes.com, and find out all the fun things I learned how to write about.